It's Tuesday, August 1st. I'm Char Nolan, one of the chef instructors at the Rouxbe Online Cooking School. Good afternoon and welcome to my kitchen. Lots going on in the food world, lots going on in the world, and we have some great questions today. And I hope everyone is well and enjoying summer. Before we start off with anything, I just wanted to kind of go over a couple of homework essentials, so to speak. One of them regards always to my favorite, which is taking great pictures. And you don't need to have like a fancy Nikon camera. When I was a Ruby student 8 years ago, I used an iPhone 3, if you can believe that, and made sure that I took photos in bright, direct, and natural light. Sometimes I would do my cooking at night, and then in the morning I would go out to my side porch in all kinds of weather and just get perfect lighting at the perfect angle. If you're doing a flat lay, you want to show everything that's overhead, but sometimes it's a lot more effective if we can see that cut slice of pie or that beautiful bowl of soup at a 45-degree angle and kind of zoom in a little bit. It's really, really hard to look at photos that are dark, because I always say that you want your wonderful, beautiful work to be shown in the best way possible, and more light, direct, and just make sure that you're having fun when you are cooking and taking those photos. So that was my first thing. And then the other thing that I just wanted to sort of go over very quickly is that it's really key to make certain that you read the requirements, not only where you load your assignment, but on the assignment itself. So that if it says that the dish should be garnished, garnish the dish. And garnishing is very important because it can tell you what ingredients might be in the dish that you're making. It certainly lands a beautiful eye appeal, and since we eat with our eyes first, something like that is important. If, let's just say this, that the food didn't come out the way you intended it to be, sometimes adding a small garnish can certainly enhance the appearance of what you have made. So photos, and make sure that you read all of the assignment requirements that are listed so that you can get the best feedback for whatever it is that you have done for your assignment. And lastly, when it says description, sometimes people will use words like "it was yummy." So I think that using more descriptive words, it was salty, it was sweet, the texture reminded me of, or whatever, but try to move away from words like yummy and delicious, because we need more adjectives than that. And I think that that's all for now. Today, our wonderful, wonderful producer is Patrick. So our thanks to Patrick for helping me, as I always like to say to him, land the helicopter. I just got back this morning. I was I work at a farm twice a month, and my role there is to make whole food, plant-based, no oil, delicious three-course meals from the produce that we gather and harvest, so that people will know exactly what to do with today, for example, a zucchini, red peppers, tomatoes, and squash. And we made a lentil sloppy joe and served it on a half of a whole wheat roll, and also made some Texas caviar and served it with low sodium tortilla chips. And dessert today was a banana, because you want to introduce to people that dessert doesn't always have to be, in Philadelphia, it would be a tasty cake, but maybe introducing people to think new ways about looking at foods that they might like. So let's get into it and see what our first question is. I'm gonna go willy-nilly today. I liked all of these questions, by the way. They certainly brought up lots of interesting things. So let's talk about, this is from Carrie, who had a question about stainless steel, and someone else had a question about a specific brand of a fancy schmancy coated pot and pan. So first I want to show you this because these two pots and pans, this is a 67-year-old Revereware saucepan. It was my mother's, still works beautifully, cooks beautifully, retains heat beautifully. That copper bottom really, really was the ticket. And then I also have a Farberware saucepan, and this was a wedding gift, so it is 41 years old. So tried and true things like stainless steel might be your best investment because the pots and pans that offer miracle cooking, that you could cook steel in that pan and nothing would happen. Go read the reviews for yourself. Um, Make your own sort of hypothesis and then find a solution as to whether or not these would really work for you. One of the things that I did read is that, yeah, they were great for the first 3 months, but after that, they started to scratch and stick and didn't really do a good job. So if you go to Rouxbe Instagram, yesterday we posted how to saute in a stainless steel pan. And that's the review about creating the water bowl or mercury bowl test, because you can cook with stainless steel. The most important thing is having the correct temperature on your pan, because if it is not at the right temperature, everything will stick. So here's what I say. You're not sure what you want to do, head to a thrift shop. Go to a thrift shop. There are some beautiful, beautiful stainless steel pots and pans and good names from back in the day, as they say. So I would buy that pan and I would practice with it, because what happens is, probably, and myself included, the first time that I used a saute pan without oil, I thought my house was going to go on fire. Not really. My point is that I had to get to know the pan. I had to practice my technique. And once you practice and sort of feel really comfortable with no oil saute, you will come to find that using a stainless steel pot or pan is going to be your best bet. So that's my commercial. And I think that my sainted mother, who loved her Revereware, and I, who had a couple of additions, that I wanted to try, because I heard that, oh, this pan is gonna like work like magic. But the reality is that I always go back to the stainless steel. So one thing, if you Google how to clean stainless steel pans, there's that thing on the internet where you put hot water in a pan with a dryer sheet and then add white vinegar. Really works. So there is that question. So Carrie, thank you very much. And Cindy P, we also answered your question in the same, we sort of put two questions into one. The other thing for Cindy that you might want to think about is sort of buying one pan instead of the entire set. Buy the one pan, try it out, give it its 3 months sort of longevity test, and then make your decision about what kind of pot or pan that you would mostly like to use. Kathy M., I loved your question about your offer to discuss taking your hobby or your passion and turning it into a business. And there are three things that I'm going to suggest to you, aside from the sort of legal side of it. And I'm not saying that you have to be an LLC. I'm thinking that maybe you need to have food handlers insurance, as well as the Safe Serve food managers certificate. So when you go to cater, or when you go to show your food at a farmer's market, everyone will always ask you for those documents. So it's very important to have those. And then, we can think on a grand scale and make a big business plan, or you can start out small. And my suggestion to many people is to always go to a farmer's market manager and speak to them. Maybe there's a farmer's market in your community. Bring some samples of what it is that you make, and see if you can get on their calendar. And remember that if you are at an outdoor farmer's market, you also need to have a tent. and that you need to have a table and signage and ingredients and everything else like that. But start out small. And I'm going to send Patrick when we're done, and then I'll make sure we post it. I do have a really good reference for you that's not filled with, 85 pages of what to do. I say this also. Um, start start sort of developing a conduit with your friends and neighbors. Give them a sample of what you make. Let them leave a little note saying, these will be available for purchase, or I can do personal or private orders for you. I think that you have to also make sure that whatever it is that you're making is a good fit for a population. And case in point, one of my very good friends owned a restaurant for 25 years, and during the pandemic, the restaurant had to close. And she and her husband quickly shifted gears, and now they are sort of like farmers market mavens. They are at a farmers market every single day, and they sell empanadas and they sell soup because it was a unique product. There aren't too many people making empanadas, and also vegan ones at that, and delicious vegan soups. So think about your product and how it'll fit, who will like it, and also take into consideration cost and other things like that. But I will get that to you before we're finished. So this is from Donna H, and it's a question about coconut milk. So, coconut milk has a very high fat content, and even the reduced fat content is still high in fat. So here's what I do. If a recipe, and I can think specifically of the coconut braised chickpea recipe, um, I make my own oat milk, and I'll make a serving of that, and then I will add some coconut extract. And there are two kinds of coconut extract. One is alcohol based, and the other one is glycerin based. And either of them will work, and they will give you that same exact coconutty flavor that seems to make that recipe pop. I will also say that depending upon the viscosity of the oat milk, in this case, that you have made, you can almost create a similar texture to what you like to see in the coconut milk. I personally don't cook with coconut milk, and I was, Donna, you reminded me that a couple of years ago I was doing some recipe testing for someone who was writing a cookbook, and they had a recipe that was very similar to the braised coconut garbanzo beans, and I used coconut extract, and the tastes were just really delicious and the same. So if for whatever the reason you don't use a lot of fat in your diet, using a homemade milk with those coconut extracts, I think will work really, really well for you. Oh dear. So today I was at the farm minding my own business, and who called but Ann Esselstyn, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr.'s wife. And I sent her an invitation to come to this live event. And she unfortunately is driving from their farm in Claverack, New York, back to Cleveland, where they live year round. So she said, just make sure that no one eats any oil. And I said, oh, Ann, that's always my message. People know. But let me go to this question about, somebody had asked about why not olive oil. Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that if you look at the nutrition label on a bottle or can of olive oil, it has no nutrition to it. So it's what's considered an old school diet talk, empty calories. Highly processed has no nutrients. So if you're following a nutrient dense way of eating, why would you want to use olive oil? Because it has no nutrients. Now, if you've ever listened to Dr. Esselstyn explain why no olive oil, and I'm not quoting him verbatim, but I have a great understanding of this, is that his research has come to show that olive oil can be an irritant to the endothelium, the inner linings of your arteries. Because remember that Dr. Esselstyn always says that heart disease is a food-borne illness. Can you eat olives? Sure. If they're covered in oil, you're going to rinse them with hot or boiling water to remove that surface oil and salt. And you can chop up a little bit of them to get some more flavor, but avoid oils at all expense. So we have a link here that you can read from Dr. Esselstyn, and it's from a really wonderful group in England. And you can sort of get his philosophy on why no oil. And it's actually fascinating. And if you've read his book, Prevent or Reverse Heart Disease, he has some amazing angiography that supports the reversal of coronary artery disease. So I'm going to just take a little left turn here and say that 14 years ago, I was minding my own business, working at Whole Foods Market, where I was a part of the store team leadership in the marketing capacity. And I got invited to go to the Engine 2 immersion, the inaugural Engine 2 immersion in Austin, Texas. And 6 months before that, I, through the corner of my eye, and it's a long story, saw that copy of the Engine 2 book. And I have to say that that book certainly changed my life. And the book changed my life because I personally do believe that food is medicine. And I have siblings who don't enjoy the same level of optimal health as I do. So I feel very blessed and fortunate that people like Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, registered dietitians like Jeff Novick, and lots of others have been around and influenced me in how I choose to buy groceries, make food, and eat. So if you ever have that opportunity to go to an immersion, I think that it was one of the joys of my life. And also the next part of that is many of you know that I work in underserved communities, because when you look at health outcomes in low socioeconomic areas who have a really low per capita income, and I'm talking less than $15,000 a year, while primary care is available to them, immersions aren't. So when I go and do what I do with my colleagues, for all of us, it's sort of like a micro mini immersion, and we're able to provide people with really delicious and beautiful food, simply written recipes. And anyway, I'm just taking that little curly cue. And when people come to our stand, they're always amazed that there's no oil, no salt, or no sugar. So I know people who say put it in their mouth and they'll love it and eat it. So there is that. This is from Peggy B. I guess it's Peggy Bird because she's the only Peggy B I know. Hi, Peggy. Third time, and after, forks over knives. So Peggy, I have a couple of things. Peggy's talking about finger cuts and having sharp knives, and what should she do. So I have 2 words, maybe 3. One is more practice. One is, are you sure your knife is sharp enough? And the other one is, get a cut glove. When I worked at Whole Foods Market, you were not allowed in the kitchen if you were going to cut something without a cut glove. And it sort of looks like something that a knight in shining armor would wear. It's actually a small mesh glove that you put over your rubber glove. And they do help tremendously. And just an interesting fact that I do remember, 70% of cuts experienced by chefs in the restaurant world are experienced because they weren't wearing a cut glove. So I think getting a cut glove is a very wise thing to do. You can go on to Amazon or go to a restaurant supply store. They're not expensive. There are different types of them, but I think that would be my first thing to say. And Peg, she just wrote, it was also her fault because she wasn't paying 100% attention. It's really frustrating when you're watching a cooking show and they're like chopping away and they're not looking at anything. The other thing is, don't forget to curl those fingers, because when you curl your digits, remember what you learned in the cutting the knife lessons is that, curling your fingers and securing what you cut is probably one of the biggest safety tools. So curl and cut glove. That's what I have to say. Peg, it's always good to see you. So this is from Terry B. Hi, Terry. Is there a good app for writing a whole food plant-based cookbook? Well, you're talking to someone who has a shoebox filled with recipes. So I'm sure that there are. There are lots of avenues for self-publishing, which you can take a look at. I think for now, the most important thing is for you to develop your tone and the cadence of your voice in speaking and how you write the recipes, and stick to the standards in terms of how you refer to things, teaspoon, tablespoon, etc., etc. But I don't know of a specific app. I'm sure there's one out there. Perhaps maybe Patrick can make a fast Google of that. But I think that's a great question. And if you write a cookbook, you better dedicate it to the instructors at Rouxbe, because we loved having you in class. So I'm not even kidding, Terry. I hope everyone appreciates my humor. Let's see. Donna has another good question, and it's about hemp milk. Do I have any advice about hemp milk? I don't like hemp milk. I don't like the flavor or taste of it. And as you've heard me mention other times, generally speaking, I make my own oat milk. I'll either use oats or some of this oat flour that's organic, and I'll save the jar for afterwards. But you can take a tablespoon of this with a cup of water. And the trick, for example, when you're making oat milk is not to over beat it, because it will come out like wallpaper paste. So beat it for about 30 seconds, and then you can put it through a double mesh strainer. Back to the hemp. If you like hemp milk, a cup a day isn't going to be harmful in any way. If you are concerned about CBD or anything like that, the CBD is usually in the flowers and in the buds. So there is no CBD oil in the hemp milk. The other thing about hemp milk is that sometimes it's overly fortified with synthetic vitamin B12, cyanocobalamin. So I don't know if you have a vitamin B12 over usage in your body, but if you like it and you want to have, a cup a day, there are lots of claims about it. Just make sure that you read the label, read the ingredients, and I would also suggest to buy some hemp seeds and just make your own hemp milk, so that you don't have to worry about any kinds of preservatives or anything like that. So, Teresa, I'm saving your pecan pie question till the end, because it was such a fascinating question. So, this is from Vanessa, and she wondered if we look at any recipe submissions for grading and guessed any region they were from, or where they. But you answered that when you recently graded mine and guessed it was from the West Coast before. That was funny. I do remember that. Yeah, the California people are really big on salsa and beautiful guacamole and other things like that. And we have a worldwide audience. So sometimes it's really interesting when I'm reading a description, I'll think, oh, it might be that they're from Italy. And then I'll go to the little button in the corner and it's like, oh, they live in Italy. So yeah, we have lots of ways of getting to know our students electronically, and we can click on that photo of you. And if you haven't put a photo on your Rouxbe site, I think having that photo is a good thing, because it's another way for you to be able to connect with your instructor. And I was telling Patrick beforehand, I'm so curious that before I have written an assignment the first time for someone, I always want to know where they live and what they look like. But I know that you like, I think it was green salsa, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, thanks, Teresa. You're very sweet to say that. This is from Jen B. Hello, Jen. Regarding the pantry reset, I'm noticing in other pictures that a lot of items are stored in glass jars, and that things don't keep in the fridge, that don't I don't keep in the fridge or stored there, nuts, etc. Is there a guide to best food storage practices? Well, here is the thing. I'm going to go over a couple of things. So, I, for example, really do enjoy. Here's some brown rice that I just keep out on the counter because we use a lot of brown rice here. But one thing to think about is that with the ball jars that sort of are four-sided, you can just lay them down on their side like that, and they'll store in your cabinet if storage is a space issue. They also store really well in the refrigerator. I have to tell you that if you're on social media and you see all of those claims about people storing grapes and blueberries and strawberries in glass containers lasting for 3 weeks, they really do. So I happen to love glass jars. I have many of them. And I think last time I spoke about these recap mason jars that I like a lot, just for the tops that they use. So I think glass is good because you can also see through it and you know what's in it. However, these little dishes you probably have seen at a clearance rack at Marshall's or TJ Maxx or Home Goods. And why I like them is that they're a vacuum seal, which is great. So let's say that I make my little whatever it is that I'm going to have, and I serve it to my guests, and I don't have to use another container because this will stay in my refrigerator. And you can do one of two things here. Somebody the other day on the Facebook page had written that they use painter's tape for writing what something is because it peels off easily and it doesn't leave any residue adhesive. Or you can use a wax pencil and just write down, rice or whatever that it is. So these come in all kinds of sizes and they have a nice appearance to them and they don't take up a lot of space and they stack well in your refrigerator. You can also microwave with them. So there's that. And the other is there's bamboo. The bad thing about most bamboo containers is that they have plastic tops, but they store food beautifully and they keep for a very long time. So back to the kitchen reset. I'm a fan of glass jars. I know there are all of these ladies on like the dollar store hunt for good things in your kitchen. Or you can go to TJ Maxx and spend a lot of money on a big brand of some sort of a receptacle that you might want to use. But I'm going to say that this oat flour blend that's gluten-free and organic, this jar will be reused in a couple of days. But jars are my thing. So I'm going to go with the jars. And one other is these are from the dollar store. And they have a little fancy design on them, and I changed the tops, and we're good to go. So I think glass is your best bet. Also, it cleans really well. You can throw it in the dishwasher, and you're also helping to preserve the environment by using glass and not plastic. So, by the way, Jen, it is kind of fascinating, isn't it, to kind of go through and see what other students have done in terms of getting an assignment finished. I also suggest that if you're getting ready to do the final party, if you're in Plant Pro, that looking through the other photos is a really good template for the expectation or level of work that we're looking for in that assignment. And believe me, I know that assignment is sort of like takes forever, but it's plants such a wonderful foundation, especially for those of you who are making plans to make a career or a business out of that, out of coming to Rouxbe. So looking at those photos is always a good thing. This is from Janet B., who has a question about turmeric. Before using it, can you just wash it and incorporate with the skin, specifically in smoothies? I use the skin of everything. So if you're just making a smoothie with it, yes. If you were going to use it to put into a dish, I would peel it first and then I would use a microplane to take out what I need, I would also suggest to wear gloves when you do it, because you will get that bright orange residue that looks like you were eating Cheetos. So wearing gloves would be my next idea. But if you're just using smoothies, you can just throw it in. I also just want to say about that if you're buying fresh turmeric, it's probably best to have US grown organic turmeric, and it's a couple of dollars more, but in terms of understanding the integrity of how it's grown and where it's grown, I think that that's a good safeguard to have in your kitchen. This is from Marcia. Marcia wants to know if I have a favorite machine to make nut milks. Well, you know, I have had my Vitamix for 14 years. And a Vitamix is an investment. A couple of things about Vitamix. They have a wonderful refurb program where you can get a Vitamix with all the bells and the whistles, and it will be sort of like a heaven send for what you want to make. I have tried other blenders, and it seems that there's so much residue. So the high-speed blender and blade of a Vitamix makes, in my opinion, the best plant milks. So that's my commercial. You can go onto their website, and some students have told me that BJ's and Costco sell them. So you can go and investigate for yourself. But I use my Vitamix almost every day. So this morning I had to make, 128 ounces of smoothies to give out for everybody to try today. And I think it would have taken me a lot longer. I didn't have to strain anything, and we had red kale and peaches. So it made a really pretty reddish color. Because, you know, people eat with their eyes first, and I thought rather than having to look at green, that might be something fun to eat. So Marcia, let us know what you decide to do. And I have been at places like Home Goods where all of a sudden randomly you'll see a Vitamix for like a ridiculously low price. So if that happens to you, that would be your lucky day to go buy a lottery ticket. This is from Vanessa, who says that nuts and seeds can go rancid, but if you use them quickly, no need to worry. It takes me a while, so I store in the freezer. Yeah, you know what? The other thing, that's another good point, Vanessa. You can store your nuts in the freezer. That's where mostly I think I store them in that Ziploc bag that you buy them in if I'm not buying them in bulk. I don't use nuts every day, so the freezer is another very good alternative. So good point there. What spices mix well with lavender? So lavender, fresh lavender is so lovely, and it has so many beautiful aromas to it that I think I'm not sure if you're looking for savory or if you're looking for sweet, but I do like to add a little bit of maybe maple syrup with some cinnamon, and I find that gives a lovely bouquet to however it is that you're going to use the lavender. So if you haven't had the chance to visit a lavender farm, I highly recommend. It's beautiful, it has lovely aromas, and it's very interesting to see all of the products that can be made with lavender, as well as I have found that lavender growers are just a really kind of fun group of people. So, you know, you can make a plant-based pound cake and add some lavender to it, and I think that would be a really delicious thing. Thanks for that very good question. What do you put on air popcorn if you don't use olive oil? No nutritional yeast. Well, you know, our tastes are things that we acquire. So I like it just plain, and you can cook it either with an air popper, or you can put it in a brown paper bag, and you can put it in the microwave. And in that case, I cook it for a couple of seconds extra so that It doesn't burn, but it has like a little, kind of burny thing to it. Um, it is hard for things to stick to spices. So, to stick to popcorn rather. So, I'm going to say that nutritional yeast for me has worked. But if you don't like nutritional yeast, you might want to experiment with other spices, like maybe some chili powder. Or a lot of people are loving the Trader Joe's everything bagel seasoning. And by the way, even though it has salt in it, a teaspoon of that has 80 milligrams of sodium in it. So, in terms of giving you that salty flavor that you like, I think using a teaspoon of that would be really, really delicious. In terms of having it stick, I know a lot of people who will gently spray 1 or 2 squirts of a vegetable broth and then cover it with everything bagel and go on their merry way. Um, Popcorn is good for you if it's cooked in oil and all of that other kind of stuff. I also want to say, formerly known as Engine 2, Plant Strong has a really delicious microwave popcorn that is the best I've ever had. So, do I have an opinion? Hi, Marcia. Do I have an opinion about everything? Marcia, about cutting boards. Bamboo is great, and they serve their purpose. They're good for the environment. But I also use a plastic, well, it's not plastic, but it's rubber or something. I got it at IKEA. And I use it for onion and garlic and other things like that, so that the juices from the aromatics don't set into the bamboo. And then you end up having a $7 box of strawberries that taste more like salsa than strawberries. Um, I have several bamboo cutting boards. I like them a lot. This thing behind me on the stove is one of those you put it over the grates and on your stove top. It's made of bamboo, and I like it, and it's easy to clean. And I use salt and lemon to clean it, so that the salt acts as an abrasive agent, and the lemon will help to take out any bacteria that might be growing in that wood. So, if you want to take me on a field trip, take me to Home Goods or TJ Maxx, and I'll look at every cutting board that they have. And that's such a great question. So let us know what you decide to do with your cutting board. So this is such an interesting question, and this is by Teresa E., who has a recipe for pecan pie that she has customarily made in a glass pie plate. And now she's beginning to sell them in aluminum pans. And she wants to know if she should change the ingredients because the texture of the pie is coming out to be a little runny. So before anything, I would always make sure that you have an oven thermometer so that you can check out the actual temp of your oven to make sure that it is equal to what the readout says, because sometimes there can be an incongruity for a minimum of 50 degrees. So that's my first thing. And then my other thing is that this was interesting to me because glass does not conduct as well as aluminum foil. So I'm wondering why that came out a little bit, but it was still too liquid for you. So if you're checking the temperature, I think that would be the first thing that I want to do, what I would have you do. I also think that I would experiment with different brands of aluminum disposable pans because they're not all created the same. Some are thinner than others. So you want to make sure that you have a good quality of an aluminum pie pan. And remember that you're going to incorporate the fee of that pie plate into the cost of your final cost of what that will be. So check your oven, try a couple of different brands. Aluminum generally cooks faster. You may have to adjust the temperature. Personally, myself, I would not change any of the ingredients. So um, a deep dish pie plate, a deep dish pecan pie sounds like it's a very delicious thing. Um, we don't have any more questions. It's the summer. I hope you're hydrating well. If you're going on vacation, I hope that you have a great vacation. And it's always a pleasure to see you online. I hope that you're also following Rouxbe on social media at Rouxbe Plants and at Rouxbe, and also on Facebook. There are three groups. There's Plant Pro, Forks Over Knives, and then the professional program as well. So occasionally I'll jump in and answer a question. I always like to see when students, converse with one another. So with that being said, I'm going to sign off to all of you. Thank you for joining me from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And I'll look forward to seeing your assignments online very soon. Bye bye now.